Yeah, I've got the words on here. Hopefully you can see these slides. These are the very many different hats I still often wear, and I have a bit of a existential crisis around how to kind of merge and balance and separate these in my life. And I run my own consultancy, and I'm part of a network called Group of Humans, and I also do IXDA London with my peer Boone Chu, been doing that for a long time. And I'm also part of a group called Coaching with Chemistry, which is about like a bunch of coaches trying to connect with the right people. In lines with some of the more personal things, I did have a slide that I just kind of unskipped because I wasn't going to talk about this, but I wear these many kind of public personas, but I have a lot of kind of personal personas, and I have to navigate those as well, from being a dad and trying to be a DJ music producer and all sorts of things. And I often get kind of attributed as being a sort of white male, but I struggle with my identity partly because I'm half Turkish, and it's really an odd thing because I only know one Turkish word, and I only found out about it, what it meant, about 3 weeks ago. And actually, it's my surname. I didn't realize. And my dad said, didn't you not realize that Mesut means happy? Which is fucking ironic, really, compared to with all my struggles in trying to have happiness myself. And the other weird thing is Jason in Greek actually means healer. So it's even more ironic that part of my role in a coach is to help people with their happiness concerns, and it's one of the big struggles of my life. So this has a meta level interest to me in terms of mental health and my struggles, which I often share a little bit publicly, maybe too much, but it helps me, it helps others, so that's why I do it. So super interesting related to this, I'm going to talk a little bit about this thing called Austin, and my caveats that make me feel a little bit more comfortable about talking about it. I was chatting to some people last week in a group, and we were talking about people typically in sort of digital user experience design, how they don't really show the work. And bizarrely, I don't really show my work much in terms of solution design work in public presentations. It's usually a lot of theory, a lot of people-based stuff. So it's a little bit raw to do this, but I celebrate the opportunity to do that, because it's something we encourage with IXDA London, showing how the kind of sausage is made, as it were, like the roughness, the scrappiness, to kind of make people feel comfortable within their own design process as much as possible. And also, this work was happening sort of a while back in generative AI years, only sort of March to June time. And so things have changed, they keep changing, and I'm not on top of it all. So I'm sure there's lots of changes here that be useful. And I was one of a large team, as Sarah kind of introduced. And personally, I had some heavy stuff going on. I'm going to use that as an excuse for any scrappiness. So as a high level, it's a kind of a little bit of a story of 4 blokes with beards, mostly white, mostly privileged, mostly British. And I kind of worked with them over a kind of time box, 10 days worth of JSON time over a period of 4 months, very part-time, all remote. One of the guys was based in Austin, the other in London and sort of Bath way. And I'm going to talk to you a bit about what we created and what we explored in that time. Not a finished product, but some explorations and some questions along the way. And some of the things I'm going to talk to you about is around the WhatsApp cosplay, as Robert called it, to model the dialogue, like a Wizard of Oz approach to kind of modeling some of the chat that you might do. The React pattern, which is an interesting design pattern and technology pattern that now OpenAI have integrated into their platform, which we were just exploring with as part of it. A little meta thing about the power in epic check-ins for people working in a team together, especially when dealing with mental health. Letting go of familiar design practice and how this world of AI needs more rigs, more kind of like content management system like things, so that we can better manage and control and adapt and pull all the different levers. So hopefully we can cover some, if not all of that. So we saw that, but this project kind of drew upon these 3 areas of my identity. So a little bit of me, my designerness, a little bit of me playing product strategy person, and a lot of me playing executive coach and having spoken with lots of coaches and having experience with coachees. And one of the reasons I think it's relevant for this is that, as Sarah rightly said, like I believe coaching is a modality of mental health fitness, and it works in a very different way to therapy. Well, very similar way in lots of ways. A lot of therapy like questions or topics come out, some of the personal stuff, especially if you work with designers, where their mental health, their personal life is massively entangled with, their professional being. But coaching typically is a modality which is all about kind of goals and moving people forwards, which is slightly different from therapy, where you might be spending most of your time going deeper and often looking backwards in order to come forward slower. And I offer in a spectrum of support like consulting design, and it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of overlaps between these things. So when I first got engaged with this opportunity, Mid-Journey, ChatGPT, DALL-E were kind of blowing up on a massive scale. I was doing lots of tinkering. I was not wanting to make public statements about my opinion on them. I think, Sarah, I can't remember if you did a talk. You shared some lovely stuff in March or April around that time. Some amazing stuff that people were doing. We came together to kind of like explore the potential of this generative AI stuff with coaching. So the team had a range of different expertise, everything from the coaching expertise to UX and UI technology and the stuff. And Rob is an ex kind of investment financial analyst, I think, like a really super experienced executive coach now, often coaching creative agencies and a lot of the people within them. Tom Evans is a legend, sort of brand communications designer, started up Mook and worked on this amazing IoT set of products called Bleeps. I'm a massive fan of his and had him speak at IXDA before. There's me, who you just met, and Matt Webb, who, again, I like, a massive hero of mine from his work with Berg and all sorts in the past. And actually, him and Tom, spoke at the same IXDA when talking about IoT back in the day. So the opportunity to work with these people was like incredible and a bit intimidating, to say the least. But what was really interesting, despite them being very blokey and beardy, and there's a bit of banter and stuff, but we dealt with a lot of personal issues just on checking in. We would often have a 2-hour catch up and spend about an hour and a half of that checking in and checking out, talking about all sorts of things and anything from, our love of early 90s drum and bass and early hardcore to substance abuse and loneliness and having kids and the challenges around that. And these are just the topics that I brought to the table. So I think that it was really interesting because, you can make an assumption that, what's a bunch of men doing some stuff on mental health, and and we did talk about we need to have some more feminine energy, but believe me, there was plenty of feminine energy in the room. So the challenge with coaching is that it's typically a very tailored talk therapy. Usually with quite expensive coaches, especially if you're an executive kind of coach and an expensive executive, like say. And the problem is it's not available, it's not accessible to many people because of that. Typically therapy is really not really appreciated. My wife is a counselor and she gets paid far less than me, having to deal with people with lots of suicidal issues and loads of things, much heavier than what I have to deal with. And she gets paid like a ridiculously small portion of what I do. Mentoring you can kind of get for free and it can go up in scale, but coaching can often be quite cost prohibitive. And part of that is just because it's taken up a lot of like my time, and I'm an inexperienced consultant or like senior business leader and the person themselves. And it's kind of like quite an expensive process, really, valuable, but expensive. And the thing is that often in coaching, at certain points, you might use the same sorts of tools and frameworks or whatever and models. You might bring in the drama triangle, if you've heard of that, or wheel of life or whatever. And some of these things you don't want to, it's kind of quite costly to explain them and to reuse them every time in every session if you need to, if you feel there's an opportunity. And so we were wondering like how AI could support coaches, coachees and the organizations around them to kind of make it a little bit more accessible, give them more time and increase the effectiveness. So improving maybe the practice for the coach, the accessibility for the coachee or the organization, and the effectiveness of the coaching relationship itself and what's going on. And we were kind of playing with this thing, obviously some of us were familiar with her, like having this kind of really personal, artificial sort of companion versus the kind of all human, no tools kind of things, and where we were going to sit on that like spectrum of like, where would this play? Would it be direct to the individual, or would it be an aid to the therapist or an aid to the coachee alongside? I think after I got introduced to this, I got very excited by the fact that Matt was joining the team as well. I was like, oh, okay, we can actually make something. That's cool. Not just talk about it. I was kind of waiting for someone in a gig, and I just quickly sketched out a few different framing things. So I'll just share this rawness. So a little bit about kind of where we might frame in the coaching relationship side. So From the coachee side, would it be about like how they found the coach, or when they start, or the actual coaching relationship, or is it about the coach and when they learn and practice, and maybe when they connect with people and when they set up a relationship and log and reflect? There's a whole bunch of processes and opportunities for technology to support that. And like, who would we focus on? The coach, the coachee, the organization, the accreditation boards and the login certification that you might do. How would we use different data and models and philosophy and bring them in and try to figure those things out? Bounce to some concepts like, how could we use some AIs to do better matching of coach to coachee, like what coach chemistry actually does? Could we provide opportunities for people to play kind of games that might help in their own self-reflection and self-knowledge? I'm kind of infamous for developing various tools for self-reflection, and what if we made those more interactive and put them into your work? To thinking through what's the right modality of interaction. So, could you have something that's text-based, kind of be positioned in audio or image, and have a kind of a bilateral relationship between those and make it easier for people to engage in those things? I always kind of reference the Eliza thing in terms of like when voice interfaces came about, like how could we kind of use that in a more natural sort of voice setting and be in a dark room dealing with my thoughts, as scary as that is. And then I thought this was really interesting, this idea of kind of from a coach perspective, having a practice partner. So in theory, if you kind of tracked and recorded sessions, which people have been doing and using Otter for transcripts, could you take that data and kind of almost replay those sessions and retwist them and kind of use it as like a playpen to kind of iterate, or even use deep fakes and kind of like put yourself under challenges to kind of coach someone who you might really struggle to have empathy with naturally. And so, yes, one of the only bits of Midjourney in here, but I thought it's cute. So we were trying to think about like the coach, the coachee, the organization. Maybe there'll be some, some aspects of like, is there an opportunity to journal as part of exercises? And then it kind of was like playing around with this model of the sessions and these little humps, and kind of was thinking around this idea of elastic engagement. So this thing that you have the sessions, and then how can you kind of have more interactions between the sessions without necessarily having to take up lots of people's time, energy, and money? So that's where we focus this bit. And the main thing being that, you'll have these sessions, 60 to 90 minutes, and they'll be separated by 1 to 4 weeks of time. And if you have physical therapy or anything else, you'll be familiar with this. Like sometimes you just forget the exercises, you don't do it. But there's a lot of pressure on the session itself, right? And there's only so much time. If you go to a GP, you're only going to get to 1 or 2 issues. And the transformation often happens within the session itself. It often happens in between the sessions if you're making it work right. So it's significantly impacted by how committed people are to do the work in between, do the homework. And there's a bunch of different factors for that. I won't go into them. So the problem is it's really hard to fit into life. How do you keep people engaged? Like Anya was asking, the memory, practice, and homework, and the avoidance of tough work, and the millions of other distractions you have in your life. So how might we help people engage with their development in between the coaching sessions, flattening the curve and stuff? So this idea of Austin in its first instance was to kind of focus on coaching when you need an assistant that supports that in between. And there's all of that. So I kind of mapped it out on a bit of a whiteboard, thinking about the session, how you might get introduced to a chatbot-ish that then kind of takes you on particular tasks, and then you work with it by yourself and potentially flag things up to a coach, or it gets flagged up. Then you can bring your learnings into the session. Essentially, that's essentially at a high level. And my first go-to was to start kind of scripting it out, like kind of thinking about, developing spreadsheets and stuff. And then we were kind of toying with this and like trying to get like Rob to kind of like create some words. How would you describe this? And it was just like getting really awkward. We were struggling with the technology. And going, why don't we just kind of do a fake WhatsApp chat? And he's like saying, what, like WhatsApp cosplay? And I was like, okay, call it that. We'd call it Wizard of Oz. And we just started kind of playing overnight. He's based in Austin, so it's a bit time mediated, but he would kind of write the things, and then I would try and respond in like as if I was a real person. I was using my real issues, introducing to things like a breathing technique, a breathwork practice, those things deleted. And then I would respond to things like kind of, pulling out my goals, or, what brief breathwork thing I'd want to go through. And then what was interesting was like, okay, when you do these breathwork exercises, they're usually because you're stressed or something. So what's going on, and what happens to your practice itself, and why are you needing it in that moment. And so there's loads of rich data that come out of that. So from my wife going, you're on your phone, it's like, well, I'm actually working, but like, you know, it's hard to separate the two some of the times. And then, like, you know, just other issues start to come up around these things. And it's like, what do you do with that? Because like a chatbot, like, does it probe that? Does it store it? What's going to happen? Does the coach get to hear about it? There's lots of interesting questions around that. Alongside, Matt was really keen. So we were taking this WhatsApp chat kind of prototyping, and was really keen to kind of like limit the hallucinations that ChatGPT, we were using a version of GPT to kind of manage this chatbot and briefing it. And how do we get it to kind of do something without a rules-based engine where you're scripting out all these different eventualities, to not just go off on a tangent and kind of recommend things that could be dangerous? And so I want to introduce you to this React pattern. Hopefully you can hear it. Can you hear?
So this is using something called the React pattern, which was really big for all of about 6 months. It made a huge splash when it came out of Google and Princeton in November 22, and then was incorporated into the OpenAI APIs as function calls about 6 months later. But the basic plot, if you've kind of like not used LLMs to this level, like imagine when you're using kind of like ChatGPT, you're having this kind of like, you know, you say something, it says something, you say something, it says something. And what you can do to the AI is you can say, right, instead of replying to me straight away, what I want you to do is I want you to say, instead of going, so listen to what I've got to say, and then say thought. Think about what you need to do, thought, colon, and do something there. And the next line, I want you to tell me what you're going to do as an action. And your action could be, I want to search Wikipedia for something, or I want to say something to the user.
So the point here was that there was a way that we could externalize the thinking process of what was going on in the ChatGPT. And so at the time of this, like, this wasn't integrated with OpenAI. So Matt was kind of bringing it to the table, and actually through his publishing on Twitter and talking about these sorts of things, he got kind of pulled into the engagement on that. So it's useful context, and apologies for the time I'm taking, but I'll just show you, this is what, there was a bunch of stuff. This is less interesting, but took a lot of time actually to connect to WhatsApp. So we were actually really keen to try and find a way to integrate this chat within WhatsApp to be closer to the actual coachee as much as possible. And there's a whole uncanniness to potentially that. But the key to kind of, we felt, was to try and kind of make it so people didn't have to log into somewhere else to have these conversations. And so it felt like this was just an easier thing to do to kind of help to increase the engagement. So a lot of work to kind of get into the chat. And then eventually, you know, it's kind of asking you about what you want to work on, and then you can tell it. And the limit of the actual coding or scripting for this is pretty light, really, to kind of create this. But then you can kind of create loops, you can create some basic rules, and all of those. And then, then it would just go through a little routine, which is maybe less interesting, but we tweak that. But we were interested to kind of like track like how often they were doing it, whether they fell off, the path, whether they could get brought on. And then we kind of had this idea around, so I forgot there, in the demo, it actually, then there's a little bit which was around trying to bring in, would you like to journal your reflections? So do the task and then journal the reflections on it. And so this was just like a one-step question. Would you like to journal reflections, and then capture it? And then what we would do, you'll see, would you like to journal? It was a bit slow. The integration was not super quick. Maybe more like a human, actually. Right. And then so eventually we could collect these journal entries in a database. So we had this kind of web interface. You could see that journal entry was captured in there. And then we'd have like a conversation around, well, what we could decide to summarize, to share with the coach or not, or keep to yourself. Essentially, you kind of got this kind of like a backstory to what was going on alongside these activities. Now, the interesting thing beneath the surface is that within the simulator that Matt created, we'd have the chat, we saved all the chats, and then you could look at what was going on for the AI. Remember this React pattern, you could see the actual course of what was happening, see the thoughts that were going on here to, understand like what was going on. What was a thought? Yeah, completed the exercise and all sorts, right? So And also, also there was a part like we could, this was a thing that Matt was talking about, was almost like creating this content management system for the AI. How could we provide an interface for like Rob or other coaches to kind of almost script their own kind of exercises, risky as that might be, to them? So we created this interface, and essentially, if you play in OpenAI's Playground, you'd take all this text in a single block and then you'd run the script, but we could edit out little scripts and play with those and then trial them out. So in summary, like we created as the MVP was more of a technical one to kind of look at some guided topics, integrate with WhatsApp, provide that transparency and allow the topics to be edited and start that journaling process. But when I started to kind of play with it, I was like saying that just this one single prompt of what is a journal entry wasn't like really good enough. We need to kind of be a bit more expansive and, capture more things and ask a question like, what else? And just before the end of the project, I started doing this and realized how dangerous this was. Because when I did start doing it on myself, I started kind of getting into a point where, I started being anxious about something to then kind of asking what else, and then worried about my bathroom and money, to worrying about my book and spiraling and starting to feel more anxious, and then saying, I think I need a drink. And at what point does the AI recognize this as a dangerous pattern? Does it need to know my context or what? And so, how could we kind of go from like something quite, maybe, painful or useful enough, and to go, right, thanks, I've done the job now, to actually flag it to someone and do something about it. So it could get pretty bad pretty quickly. And unfortunately, that's when we paused the project for summer holidays, and then we pitched the project, and it is currently now pivoting. So sorry for that being both long and also quick. I hope it's interesting and useful in some ways. I know we might not have too much time for discussion, but maybe that could be brought into some of the topics in the breakouts later.